Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm just going to spend a short time with this video talking about my final impressions and wrap up of Undaunted Normandy. Now this is after 3 or 4, I'm up to 4 battles in, and overall I remain very impressed. I talked in the first video about the quality of the game pieces, the artistry of the manufacture. I really love the look of the game, and you saw for yourselves a lot of the components in action and interacting in the previous video. So what do I think of this game? I like it. That's my initial impression. I think that probably came through quite well. But in terms of its primary function, indeed the function of all games that are to do with war, how does it perform as a simulation? I think that is a good question. This game sits somewhere in the middle for me. So on the one hand, it broadly captures the feel of platoon level infantry combat. I was going to say in World War II, but you could probably adapt this system to just about any of the major conflicts that were fought throughout the 1930s. Excuse me. Possibly also including some into the late 1940s, early 1950s. Essentially, it models a particular period with a particular force structure and particular weapons systems and tactical approaches, maybe. The interplay between the various elements of scouting, projecting force through firepower, they work in a way that lend themselves very well to the fire and maneuver tactics of the 20th century. That said, there are some glaring gaps that stop this from becoming a truly great war game. So it's very much an I go, you go experience. So you'll seize initiative once you've drawn your hands, or lose the initiative. One player takes the entirety of his turn, the other player takes the entirety of their turn. Play continues until one side meets its victory conditions. There are rules for what to do in the case of a deadlock in terms of determining a winner, but that's it. So the most glaring omission that most wargamers will notice is the lack of what we call opportunity fire, or the ability to react during an opponent's turn. Now, this is a feature of a lot of heavy-duty war games, and especially in games that feature positional warfare. So if you're assaulting a fixed defense line, it makes sense that the defenders can open fire on you. Now, the way this game is structured, that element is present in a slightly different way, in that depending on the cards you have, and you have to be quite lucky with this, it's not all that common for a unit to be able to move and fire in the same turn. We've seen it happen. It's certainly happened in the games I've played, but it's not something you can bank on having happen every single turn. So more often than not, your rifle units in particular will be left with this stark choice of, do I advance or do I fire? And whatever choice they make, an enemy will be able to respond on their turn. So it's not opportunity fire or any kind of convincing reaction mechanism. But I don't think its absence from this game breaks the game either. Another issue I've noticed, which may surprise wargamers, is or people who like their hardcore war games, I should say, is the lack of assault. So if an enemy unit occupies a position, let's go for their example here, that US unit, if these tiles are adjacent, cannot advance into that one until the Germans in it are eliminated. Now that's quite a major thing, because in many games the idea is you soften up your enemy with gunfire, or at least demoralize them significantly. Before you then advance, then you throw in your close combat. As you've seen, there's no close combat element in this. It's implicit in that your attacks become more effective the closer you get because of the range modifier. But you never have a situation in this game where two enemy units will occupy the same space. Certainly not in Undaunted Normandy. I have yet to find out whether they have changed that in this beauty, which arrived today. Yes, Undaunted North Africa is here. And already I can see signs of some new features. We have tanks now, and correspondingly we have anti-tank capability as well. We also have aircraft. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do. I mean, other than the obvious, but I want to see what they do in the game. Because this is taking it to the next level. As I say, from my briefest of glances in the box, it's all the stuff you have in Undaunted Normandy, but we have more support mechanisms. We have armor and we have air, so this is really exciting. Let's see whether there's rules for assault. Apparently a lot of the scenarios in this are built around the British long-range desert group, and for all that they were about roaring out of the night in heavily armed jeeps and trucks, there's still an element of, getting up close and nasty. So I'll be fascinated to see how that is dealt with in this title. I'll just wave it in front of you again so you can admire the artwork. Very much the same high quality art. The illustrations on the cards, the detail on the units is just magnificent. And that terrain is just gorgeous. Really, really gorgeous. Which probably brings me to my last point and a good place to wrap up. The aesthetic of this game. It's beautiful, it's eye candy, I love it. A couple of other reviewers have suggested it's a bit Hollywoody. I see what they mean. It very much, the Commando comics-esque artwork is very reminiscent of that sort of literature where it's a little bit gung-ho, come on boys, let's go kick those krauts kind of a thing. And some might say that that's a bit inappropriate for a war game. We don't think like that anymore. We don't glorify war. These are meant to be fun, educational, and competitive. They're also meant to be, treatment of a fairly horrible subject that humankind is unfortunately very good at in real life. A particular criticism that's been levelled against the Undaunted Normandy is the lack of segregation. Because, of course, as I mentioned previously, all the scenarios relate to the experiences of the US 30th Division. Now, historically, the US Army was segregated, sadly, into black and white units. So this mix and match where they've gone a little bit PC by sprinkling some black soldiers in among their white counterparts, it's not strictly true to life. You did get units mixing and meeting on the fringes, and you did get overlap. It did happen, but some have suggested that maybe that's there more for effect than to reflect reality. My personal view of it is that I don't mind that much. It's a bit Hollywoody, yes, but if you choose to look at it in a positive way, it is an excellent nod to the contribution of the black and other minority elements in the United States Army. And the same is true of what they've done for the British in North Africa. We have our Sikh gentleman there with his Tommy gun, with his very obviously British colleague over there. So, it is what it is. A lot of games and a lot of movies are doing it. I don't have a particular problem with it. It does not affect the gameplay one whit. It doesn't detract in any way from what is an excellent game, excellent pair of games, I should say, and part of a really wonderful series. I've dwelt a bit on observations of what's missing from the games and the slight artwork criticism, but overall, my conclusion is that these games are brilliant. They do give you the sense of worry uncertainty and tension that you would experience as a platoon commander, certainly in the Bocage in World War II. And I expect I'll get the same impression of, roaring around the dunes of the North African desert, shooting up enemy bases and then running hell for leather to get out of there before the Italians wake up and exact retribution for what I've just done to their airfield supply depot, whatever. You get that sense. It's without risking anybody's life or putting you in any physical danger. It's quite immersive. You get into it. And I think that's the great strength of this game. I think the beauty of this series is that there is enough in it to attract your grognard who just wants a quick filler war game that is fun and satisfying, pretty balanced and plays very well. But at the same time, this series will appeal to anyone who has tried entry-level war games and wants something just that little bit meatier before they hopefully step up to, I don't know, Flames of War, up front if you can get your hands on it, Squad Leader, that sort of game. It's a perfect bridge between those two worlds. It's a very gentle introduction, very enjoyable introduction to the world of historical simulation wargaming in the Second World War era. I think it's well worth your money. These games are not expensive. They're certainly not compared to a lot of war games on the market now. They have a ton of replayability in them. And I'm sure it won't be long. In fact, actually, I'm already too late in saying this. I expect new scenarios are being crafted both by the designers and by fans of the game. The beautifully modular maps and unit compositions allow you to fashion just about anything in almost, well, you could do Western Europe and North Africa at the moment, but if they bring more games in this series out, you could model any theatre, which is a really exciting thought. I hope that they will extend this system to East Asia and the Pacific, because as I've probably said ad nauseum on this channel, I'm very much a Far East Pacific War baby when it comes to that kind of thing. And I would love to see, hopefully one day, I mean, at the moment it's great. There's 2 boxes in the series. I have 2 hands. I can do this. I would love for a day to come when I can do a series extolling the virtues of, I'll hold up the empty box, empty air around the box, in anticipation that there will be an equally beautiful box full of Pacific War goodies with, Chindits or US Marines and charging Japanese in the picture, because I would be very interested to see how they capture that very unique theatre. And if they include the China front, I will love them forever. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for following this particular series on my channel. I hope you found it useful. Definitely get this game, or just track down someone who has it. Hello. And corner them and demand a tryout, because it will not disappoint, I don't think. So on that note, thank you again for tuning in, and a very fond farewell until our next meeting. Thank you.